The road to the White House finally winds through KC, and that came out of nowhere. The surprise site now being proposed for a new Royal Stadium. Now, how is it going to work as Jackson County lawmakers vote this week to place a Chiefs-only tax on the November ballot?
I think people are going to start to realize, like, this is our last shot here for the Chiefs.
Also this half hour, rising anger over car break-ins, the new battle over debates, and this is unexpected. Get ready for the big streetcar shutdown.
Week in Review is made possible through the generous support of Dave and Jamie Cummings, Bob and Marlise Gorley, the Courtney S. Turner Charitable Trust, John H. Mize, and Bank of America N.A. co-trustees. The Francis Family Foundation through the discretionary fund of David and Janice Francis, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello and welcome, I'm Nick Haynes. Glad you could join us on our weekly journey through the most impactful and sometimes just downright head-scratching news stories in Kansas City. And as we were hosting a special edition of the program last week with the police chief, the prosecutor, the Jackson County Sheriff, and Urban League CEO Gwen Grant, we're going to give you 2 weeks in review for the price of one this half hour. So talking twice as fast and with double the insights is KMBC primetime news anchor Chris Ketz and Channel 9 chief political analyst Michael Mahoney. From KCUR News, Lisa Rodriguez, and from our Metro's newest newspaper, Next Page KC, Eric Wesson. Now, this came out of nowhere. A new site is now being considered for a downtown Royals ballpark. This is Washington Square Park, a stretch of green space that sits directly between Union Station and Crown Center that is currently home to a large statue of George Washington and a Korean War memorial. Could it also be the place that the Royals will soon be playing ball? Since the site was revealed, public reaction has been decidedly mixed, from genius idea to what on earth are they thinking? Mayor Lucas is excited about the idea, but for those of us still a little confused, what is supposed to be the big upside of this site, Chris?
I think one of the big upsides might be is the view looking back to the north, seeing the skyline of downtown beyond the outfield wall. That might be kind of one of those things that is good for TV. It would put Kansas City, I think, maybe in a slightly more picturesque light. But the footprint of this site is the concern that people keep coming to me with. Is it big enough to hold something like this? Now, apparently the ballpark in downtown Minneapolis is on a footprint that is slightly smaller than Washington Square Park, but still there are questions about traffic and congestion and getting in and out, the same sorts of things that have come with other downtown sites.
So what's the downside of this site?
I think exactly that, the size, and then there's worry about traffic and congestion. This is not a space where you can make a lot of changes to roadways or highway access there. So there's some confusion about exactly how you're going to get as many people there. Parking, although there are parking garages around that area, is another concern there.
Michael, it's interesting to me that we have still not heard from the Royals, though. They haven't commented on it. I mean, why are we doing this if they can't even come forward and say this is something we're interested in?
Because I think that there is a real concern here that the ballpark may actually leave Kansas City, Missouri. And so the city fathers of Kansas City, Missouri are doing their level best and coming up with every plan they can think of to try and keep this team in Kansas City and in the city limits. Clearly, the Royals have made it clear that they want out of Kauffman Stadium, and they'd prefer a downtown ballpark. But this is a lot like the debate last winter, where the cards were held very tight to the vest, and they ended up paying for it.
One of the things I thought about is, where's your entertainment district going to go? Because that was one of the selling points that they
isn't Crown Center an entertainment district?
I wouldn't call it that. I was thinking about clubs and restaurants and that kind of thing. And is it really downtown? I'm thinking downtown like Grand and Main and that area.
When I talk with the downtown council, they say up to 31st Street, which is where we are at our studios. It's actually technically downtown. But while we talk about this as being between Union Station and Crown Center, it's also between Blue Cross and Blue Shield, which is going to be moving out of that building, giving more space, but also between Hallmark and which I've just been over there. I've insiders there. It has become a ghost town, Chris. There's hardly anybody working there. Could this be an opportunity for Hallmark to get rid of some of its space from its parking lots and some of its other buildings there to make room for a ballpark?
And maybe one of the advantages to this site is you have fewer properties to have to buy to make this ballpark work. But there is automatic synergy, I think, with Crown Center, with Union Station, perhaps the Crossroads as well. That might be part of the appeal, too.
Now, as we've been talking about the Washington Square Park as a possible home, that was just one of several breaking news developments in the ongoing stadium saga. Here are some others. Mayor Lucas confirms that the city is working to avoid another public stadium vote by working instead to cobble together tax incentives to help pay for it. Missouri Governor Mike Parson just weighed in, expressing frustration with the Royals' indecision. He says the team must decide on a path forward soon if it expects any financial help from the state. And hold the front page, Jackson County lawmakers are scheduled to vote on Monday on a quarter-cent sales tax to fund just the Chiefs. If approved, you'd vote on it this November. But no Royals in that plan, Eric. Has Jackson County officially given up on the Royals?
You know, that's a great question, and if I could get one of the legislators to answer it directly, that would give us a lot of insight. But I think it is, they've always wanted to separate it since the last tax failed. So this is an opportunity to separate them, let them go after their own taxes.
Lisa.
I think on the Royals, where the Jackson County legislature is at this point is, all right, we're going to step out of leading these discussions. If Kansas City has a plan that involves just Kansas City voters and just that tax base, let them do it. Let a site come up, and then we'll get in and see what, if anything, the county needs to contribute. So they're stepping out of the lead, but in the meantime, if we can do anything, if there's a Hail Mary that we can do to get one team to stay at that Truman Sports Complex, that's what they're going to do right now.
They maybe need to have a decade of 10 Hail Marys on this one. Eric.
You know, what I thought interesting in the conversation, the pushback might be that, you know, the mayor talking about doing it without voter approval or without people having input. I think you might be treading on thin ice with that. And also, the governor saying, make up your mind what you want to do. I think billionaires have options, and I think maybe they're saying, well, why didn't you step up to the plate when this first came? Now, all of a sudden, you got an opinion about it.
I think people also look at this with a sort of 30,000-foot view. You have the county trying something, you have the city trying something. We don't know what the state of Missouri's participation will be in all of this. There doesn't seem to be coordination or cooperation. Everybody's kind of going on their own, and I think people are very skeptical about how this is going to come out.
To Lisa's point, the Jackson County legislature and Jackson County government in general seems like since the April vote, now where's the parade and how do I get in front of it? I mean, they're just not with it.
Well, we may not know what countries will play in Kansas City when the World Cup comes to town in 2026, but we finally know where the World Cup Fan Fest will be. The massive free music, food and activity event will take place on the south lawn of the World War I Museum.
We'll have an opportunity to stand together, to celebrate, to bring countries and cultures together, and more than anything, to show them that Kansas City isn't just the heart of America, but it's the heart of the world.
FanFest is really an opportunity to show not only the hundreds of thousands of fans who will be in our region during the World Cup, but millions, hundreds of millions of fans around the world who we are.
I can think of no better place.
The perfect place? Isn't this almost the identical setup to what we experienced when the NFL draft came to town last year?
It is exactly the setup, but I would argue the World Cup is a completely different event, and there were lessons learned from that NFL draft that maybe can inform these decisions. So the NFL draft is 1 or 2 days where people are largely coming from out of town, some from Kansas City, and they're there, and their only thing they're there to do is see the draft. The World Cup is a weeks-long event where people are in and out of Kansas City for several days at a time. They've got a chance to explore other parts of the city. They're in and out of this experience. So it is an event of a much different and much larger scale.
We could have some big name people coming into town to do concerts there. We can have international nibbles as part of that and libations from the different countries. But it's all going to be fenced in like the NFL draft would. You'd have to have an app to go through a security and checkpoints. But wasn't that one of the complaints, though, of the NFL draft, that local businesses, because it was so enclosed, you couldn't get out of it, that they didn't benefit from all of those fans coming in.
I think also, too, based on the experience of the NFL draft, a lot of these businesses who are complaining about just that may approach a World Cup Fan Fest in a much different way and be more aggressive about selling their own businesses.
Right, because will the soccer association or soccer league, will they control it? The NFL controlled it when they had it here. So who's going to control it? The city, the soccer league, or are we going to be right back at square one?
Now, as we were hosting a robust town hall on the state of policing in Kansas City last week, another big crowd was gathering in Waldo and Brookside over a spate of car break-ins that they say police are doing nothing to solve. About 200 people showed up at a town hall with representatives of local law enforcement.
I think, we're kind of at our wits' end looking for solutions.
Now it's happening in the daytime. Usually crime was under that cloak of darkness.
Imagine having your car stolen not once, not twice, but 3 times.
It just feels like an epidemic, and it doesn't feel like the police really care much about it.
Part of the problem is police numbers. KCPD says it's lost roughly 25% of its force since 2021. The other problem? Property crimes are more difficult to solve.
That's not, saying something negative about police. It's just, there's a constitution, there's certain things that we have to have in order to have a prosecutable case.
Which is why this panel recommended everyone invest in high-resolution cameras to capture crimes in action.
Okay, so we have to get the cameras. You can't rely on the police to do that. But they said they lost 25% of their officers. That is the issue. Is that a cop-out or a legitimate concern?
It's a concern, but why have you lost them and why aren't you able to replace them? They threw money at it. They've given people raises. They've upped the salaries. Why? And the key part of it is you don't have a good relationship with your community. And you've not done or addressed that. You've not acknowledged that. We think everything is okay, hunky-dory, peachy-creamy, but nothing has been done to fix the relationship between the community and the police department. And it tells in every way that you talk to people about the police department.
I did see on your channel, though, Chris, they did catch 2 juveniles who were connected with many of those crimes that we just saw spotlighted there.
15, in fact, and there may be more.
Now, one of the issues that we saw, though, from the folks there at that forum was that even if people are arrested, nobody seems to go to, quote, jail in Jackson County. As one Brookside resident put it, Kansas City is known for football and for no prosecution.
I think one of the complications here is that we do have 2 juveniles, at least, that have been charged in these cases, and at least anecdotally, I've heard that it's groups of young people who are committing these crimes. Now, when we get into juveniles, there's just a lot that the public can't know. Even in these charges, we know charges have been filed. We don't know what those charges are, and we're never going to know the names of those juveniles. Everything is handled a little differently, and the way that we punish juveniles is different as well. We're not necessarily sending them to jail. There's much more of a restorative justice approach to this kind of stuff.
Maybe this is the wake-up call that people need to, sort of get behind getting the Kansas City Police Force up to full staff.
And about just a few weeks ago, we had all the Jackson County prosecutor candidates on this program, and it was interesting to me how they fell over themselves to say how much they were going to concentrate on property crimes. We're going to do more on that.
Absolutely. They all vowed that they would take a different approach than Gene Peters Baker did once they get into the office. But here's the key thing that nobody wants to talk about. The issue is that Kansas City doesn't have a jail. There's no deterrent for bad guys, because what are you going to do? Write me a ticket and then let me go? If not, you're going to send me out 87 miles away to another jail, and that's not a deterrent. If there's not a jail, there's no deterrent for people to want to do the right thing.
And I have to say, in fairness... So.
Well, just to follow up there a second, why is not getting shipped out of town to Clinton County or wherever else they store them? Why is that not a deterrent? I mean, not only are they in the can, they're in the can, a considerable distance away.
Because it's too far away, and unless it's something that's a major crime, they're not going to drive you way down there and drive you back, because they don't have the manpower to do that.
I will say, in fairness to Jackson County Prosecutor Gene Peters Baker, she said at that forum that she is prosecuting 80% of the cases that come her way, including property crimes. Take that for what you will. The uproar over property taxes in Jackson County could soon be hitting the ballot box. Jackson County lawmakers have just voted to add a question to the November ballot asking voters, should the county elect its property assessor? Currently, that position is held by Gail McCann Beatty, who was appointed by Jackson County Executive Frank White. But what difference would this make if that position were elected, Lisa?
Well, I think with anyone who has to campaign for a job, they do need to be a little more open with how they're going to approach it. So voters could potentially elect a candidate who they think is going to handle the process more fairly or in a way that they see as favorable to them. The downside there is that anytime there's a campaign or an election, there is the possibility of corruption. You know, when you're accepting donations, where is the obligation there to either hand out favors or not, which is why the county went to an appointed position to begin with. But at this point, public trust has been lost. So perhaps it is an option to explore.
Absolutely, they need to do it. I think the county executive's position is you could get somebody that's not qualified to do it, and then you'd have that situation come up. But most people that I've listened to talk about it say we need to elect that person so that there is some accountability to the community about what these assessments are.
If people think they're just punishing Gail McCann Beatty, she's not going to lose her job anytime soon because it wouldn't even be up for election until 2028.
Yeah, and I could envision in the not too distant future somebody running for county assessor taking the Grover Norquist tax pledge, saying, I will not raise the rates at all under any circumstances, and that puts Jackson County in another pickle because they would have that sort of pledge, which they would be difficult to fulfill. But it's sort of a bad idea.
I have to say, if you live in Jackson County, you may want to be taking election day off this year because you're going to have so many decisions to make. We've got the stadiums, we've got this, there's possibly an aging and tax debate, never mind the abortion issue, sports betting. It's going to be a pretty crowded ballot, Eric.
It is. I would encourage people to get an early ballot just to look through it.
Tons
and not to
of issues.
mention the presidential elections.
The road to the White House finally cut through Kansas City this week. Republican vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance was in Johnson County this Thursday. He was headlining a fundraising reception at a private home in Mission Hills. So the public didn't get a chance to say hi, Chris?
Well, of course, as long as they can. If they're able to write a check for, between $5,000 and maybe $50,000, you can do that, you can be there.
So why weren't there any public events? Did the Trump campaign believe that there's no advantage in trying to get out the vote in Kansas or Missouri because that's pretty much locked up?
Exactly. That's the reason for it. When they come in and shake the money tree, they are here to do just that and not work for votes. I haven't been to a big dog fundraiser that was open to reporters in decades.
Is this going to be the only chance we're going to actually see, though, a member of one of the big presidential tickets be in Kansas City before Election Day?
I'm not sure on that. I could envision J.D. Vance or Tim Walz coming back to the Kansas City area in particular, and not so much because they think that the Democrats could flip Missouri or flip Kansas, but to come in basically to shore up, in the Republicans' case, the supermajority in the Kansas legislature, and Democrats would come in to try and break the supermajority in the Missouri legislature and campaign and try to gin up the vote turnout for the abortion question.
Now, many of our top elected leaders were in Chicago for most of the week at the Democratic National Convention. You can see some familiar faces, by the way, mugging for the cameras in the traditional roll call of states.
As the first ever black chair in Kansas, I am proud to cast our 39 votes for the first black woman president, Kamala Harris!
We're home to Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, and we proudly cast 2 votes present and 68 votes for Kamala Harris and our Midwestern friend, Tim Walz.
Other than seeing Quinton Lucas and Emmanuel Cleaver excitedly cheering during the roll call of states, did Kansas or Missouri have any role to play in this week's convention? No primetime address from Quinton Lucas or Governor Laura Kelly?
Not this time. Not this time. Besides wearing red and making their wearing their Chiefs jerseys, I think that was probably the biggest splash they'll make. But again, we knew all the delegates on the Democratic side were going to go toward Kamala Harris, and otherwise, Kansas and Missouri, like we've talked about, are pretty locked up.
You know, you could make the case that Laura Kelly could have earned a speaker slot by virtue of the fact that she replaced Tim Walz as the head of the Democratic Governors Association, and she could have got up and given a testimonial from that standpoint. But you know, she's not the most dynamic speaker.
Well,
either.
Laura Kelly though did appear with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, the actress, formerly of Seinfeld, in a women's governors Q&A. I don't think was in prime time, but got some attention nationwide.
There wasn't 15 minutes of fame to be had. It was more like 15 seconds.
All righty. Well, while most of the political news, again, was centered on the Democratic National Convention, a battle over debates became one of the most headline-grabbing political stories where we live. It was like a WWE wrestling storyline as the Missouri State Fair, as U.S. Senator Josh Hawley tracked down his Democratic opponent to demand that he debate him right then between the funnel cakes and the potbelly pig racing.
Let's go find Lucas Kunce. I haven't seen him. Have you guys seen him? Lucas Kunce, we get a debate today?
How you doing, man?
We get a debate today?
I don't know what you're talking about.
We get a debate
dude.
today? You don't know? I just think it's sad that he is unwilling to debate. He's been in his basement for 2 weeks.
The ridiculous thing here is that we have a guy who can't agree to 5 televised debates because he doesn't want to answer to his record.
All right, for all the attention this video got, has there been agreement now on a televised debate, Lisa?
There hasn't been agreement yet on
After
a
all
televised
that?
debate that I know. I mean, this was just a show of this blustering masculinity and machismo that really is maybe entertaining to watch, but doesn't really give us any sort of information on what makes these candidates different, electable, what their platforms are. What we saw is just 2 big personalities, which I think we might be tired of.
Does it matter, though, Eric? Certainly Mike Kehoe just won the Republican nomination for governor in Missouri without ever debating any of his opponents.
Right. They could do it. They don't really have to. I don't know if either one of them has a platform that they really want people to know about.
Does anybody care, though, about debates anymore?
Well, I may be the only one at this table, but I think this was a lost opportunity by both campaigns. This would have been an opportunity to see these two in a much more informal, a much more relatable context setting than the traditional debate, which I think a lot of people, too many people, sort of gloss over.
I would like to know what's the commercial about. Kunce going to take away trucks.
Lucas Kunce did say in the American Prospect magazine in 2021, we need to ditch all fossil fuels for the sake of national security. He didn't mention pickup trucks, but that was the reference that he was trying to pick up there.
Right.
Josh Hawley's campaign is going to hang that around his neck like a dead fish.
Well, in a half-hour show, it's tough to do justice to all the stories that are happening in Kansas City, and there's been a lot of interesting things going on politically and culturally. For instance, if the Chiefs can play in places like Germany, why not our Symphony? The Kansas City Symphony beginning its first European tour this week, playing famed concert halls in Berlin, Amsterdam and Hamburg. And the mayor of Prairie Village breathing a huge sigh of relief. A recall effort to oust him from office fails to get enough signatures. Kansas Cityans can now resume one of their favourite pastimes, Taylor Swift spotting. Now that the pop phenom has wrapped up her European tour, she's apparently hanging out in Kansas City for the next couple of months as main squeeze Travis Kelce starts the new Chiefs season. And heads up, guess who's going to be here next week? Dolly Parton. She's not going to be singing, but announcing the expansion of her free children's book program in Missouri. She will appear with Governor Mike Parson at a downtown event on Tuesday. And the streetcar marks a big milestone this week as the first streetcar rolls on to the main streetcar extension down Main Street, down to the plaza. It's part of a test run, but be prepared for some major disruption ahead. Streetcar leaders say the entire system is going to have to shut down for 3 weeks starting next month. Now, that little gem, Chris, was buried at the bottom of a news release, but that seems to be an awful lot of massive disruption. Why?
Well, because Main Street has been a mess for far too long because of the construction of the extension of this line. Apparently, it's still on track for next, no pun intended, for next year, but nobody's committing to a date yet.
Right. I mean, at this point, the shutdown is for testing, making sure that the streetcar works, that it can traverse the land and different, hills and such. But at this point, shutting down the streetcar for 3 weeks when Main Street's been a disaster for however many years, I don't know that it'll feel as impactful as we think.
Now, those were the big stories that I thought we missed. What was the big story you thought we missed?
I'll go back to Taylor Swift and off the concert trail, as it were. There have already been some significant discussions going on between Taylor Swift's security people and Leawood Police, in particular, about how to handle how long she's going to be in to make sure that everything goes.
We could see her at the local grocery store, your local Costco, perhaps, in the next few weeks.
Maybe the Trader Joe's on 119th.
Alrighty, Eric.
I had two of always. That's my trademark. Joanne Collins. They had a room named after her in City Hall. She was
the former city council member, yes.
Former city council, the first mayor pro tem and black woman elected to the city council. And they had a blunder earlier where they said it was Rainey Park Young, but it was actually Joanne Collins. And number two, the city is deciding to put a measure on the ballot in April for safety sales tax extension at the same time that the school board is going to put a bond issue before voters too. To have both of those on the ballot at the same time, I think is going to be a problem for one of those two.
Lisa.
I think that the failure of petitioners to get enough signatures to recall the Prairie Village mayor, to force a vote on that, is kind of the end of a chapter in recent Prairie Village history, maybe not the end of the book, but this is the group that has been very opposed to any sort of solutions to get more affordable housing into Prairie Village. And I think as Mayor Michelson said, you know, it is time to kind of turn the page on this. This is the latest of several failed attempts to change the government, to oust the mayor, to prevent any type of zoning changes. And so I think that is significant.
Michael, Eric traditionally, as he said, has two. You usually have 9 to go through at the end.
Just one
okay, just
today.
one.
And it's not a story necessarily that we missed, but it's a developing story that Kansas City should keep their eye on, especially if they live in the Kansas City, Missouri school district. And that is the fact that they're going to, as Eric made mention of, put a general obligation bond question on the April ballot. The Kansas City, Missouri School District has not passed a GO bond like this since the 1960s. It's a story to watch.
And we will be watching. And on that, we will say our week has been reviewed, courtesy of Channel 9's Michael Mahoney, and at the helm of Next Page KC, Eric Weston. From KC1 News, Lisa Rodriguez, and from the anchor desk at KMBC, Chris Ketz. We're heading into our membership drive next week, so you won't see us in this spot, as truckers like to say. We'll see you on the flip side. I'm Nick Haynes. From all of us here at Kansas City PBS, be well, keep calm, and carry on.